Are we starting now?
Yeah, whenever you are ready, we're ready to go.
Okay, great. Okay, fellas, it's great to be back here at the Mecklenburg County Jail. I didn't know. Right now, I just actually got in the mail yesterday these booklets, and they're not. I don't think they've gotten to the jail yet. I just published this all as part of this program because I wanted you to be able to have them and take them with you wherever you go, because I think they're helpful. There's a lot of questions in there and organic questions that will help. Those are the types of questions that helped me through the entire journey. And so I published them in that book, and it's my understanding you guys don't even have the PDFs today. So we'll just continue, if it's okay with you, going through the program. And today's course is really about goals. It's very specific. So I created this PowerPoint, and I'm going to share it with you so you kind of have an idea. You guys could be looking at the clock and kind of planning how we get through the day together. One thing I was wondering is you guys probably don't wonder why I have this green thing behind me. And if you don't know anything about videos, I have another course that I'm going to be offering a little bit later on. That's how to build a YouTube channel and use video to start building your brand. And because I have this green screen, when you see some of the videos on the computer, you'll notice that I'm kind of blocked out and I'm floating around the screen. It's because I put this green thing behind me, I can block it out. So I wanted to explain that because I know that I wouldn't have understood that when I was in jail. So you guys will see that in the YouTube channel when you guys are watching the videos that are a part of this course. But let me share my screen with you and kind of walk through what I would like to do today. But again, as I say every time, I'm very flexible and completely open to suiting you and to using this program in a way that I hope will suit all of you. So I created this. I generally start my day really early in the morning. And this morning I got up at like 3 o'clock California time, which is 6 o'clock your time, so I could start getting ready for this course. And I always film these really preliminary videos before I even go in there, because I use this as part of my strategy to, I hope, teach and inspire more people that are facing challenges with the criminal justice system. So I've been kind of using you guys and our interactions together as a tool to let people know, hey, these are strategies that work for me to prepare for success from a jail or a prison. I hope they can work for you. What we're still going through today is like the values and the goals, and then we'll get into this straight A guide concept starting tomorrow. But today we're going into goals. And so during this first little preliminary time that we have together, I kind of want to recap a little bit of what we did yesterday with regard to values. And so I'm going to ask you guys some questions, and I hope that some of you will be interactive with me and participate by coming up to the microphone when I ask some questions. And then after we get through with the values, some of the questions I'm going to ask you, and we'll turn to this just in a few minutes. And I don't think we have to pay too much attention to the time. We got started a little bit late. So whenever you guys, we'll just be flexible together. But I'm going to ask you guys a couple of questions on how these values apply to your future conversations with what a person who is in custody can start doing today, with regard thinking about the probation officer they're going to meet in the future, thinking about the employer they're going to meet in the future, thinking about the the business people they're going to meet in the future. I think I'm going to talk about what avatars are. I hope that some of you know what I mean by that, but if not, I'm very happy to speak a little bit more about it. And then we'll transition into this whole concept of setting very clear goals that are specific, measurable, action-oriented, realistic, time-bound, and then talk about how do we use those in our life inside and outside. And then I know that it's at 7 o'clock Pacific to 7:15 or 10 to 10:15, we have a break. And then I want to talk a little bit about that assessment that we discussed yesterday and how this applies to goals. We'll go into that three-legged stool again, where I talked about having a strategy that's documented, creating tools and tactics, and then measuring our progress day by day. We'll talk about how this applies to us before sentencing, after sentencing, and after release. And that will take us all the way to the 11 o'clock hour. So that's what I wanted to be sharing with you today of how I wanted to get through this. And what would be awesome, instead of me sharing the PowerPoint with you, I'm just going to shrink it down and we'll have this conversation about what with regard to values. Yesterday we spoke about identifying success. And I'm always open about what I am doing. And I can tell you that right now, during this era where we have like this, multitude of problems going on, right? We've got, as you guys, I'm sure you guys are watching the news, you know that we have 40 million people who have filed for unemployment. We have social unrest around the country that you guys are seeing. We've got a pandemic going on, right? All of these problems, we've got to be thinking, how does that apply to us as people who are in jail or people who are going to prison? When we're going to return to a society that has all these things going on, who's going to be the last person to be hired? We got to be thinking about that and say, okay, I've got to live in the world as it exists, not as I want it to be. So what can I be doing today, regardless of where I am, to advance my prospects for success? And that's regardless of what stage in the journey I'm in. Because I know I'm going back to a community where there's a lot of problems. And as a formerly incarcerated person, I have to deal with that every single day. And I am very happy to share with you what I am doing in response to that. But I more importantly want you to be thinking organically, what can you be doing? And so when I ask you today some concepts or questions about how are you defining success and what can a person in custody start doing, I would love it if one of you guys would get up and talk with me about how are you thinking about this in concepts of the future probation officer you're going to meet. And is there somebody there that could tell me a little bit about that? And if not, then somebody just stand up and we'll have a conversation about it. Any volunteers to tell me about how you define success with regard to a future conversation you are going to have with a probation officer? I know you'll come up, Cole. Come on up, dude. You got to motivate the other brothers in there.
So the question is how do we define success when dealing with a future probation officer?
So yeah, I want you thinking about this. What is one thing, right? If we're going to use this concept of defining success, the objective for me, and I really hope this becomes an interactive exercise that everybody understands, nobody should be working harder for your success than you, right? And it's how you define it. But there's one thing that every single person wants when they come out of jail, and that's a higher level of liberty. Isn't that right?
Yeah.
So everybody wants. So you got to anticipate, I'm going to sit across the table from a probation officer someday. And I know that's the case for every person facing federal charges. Everybody does that because they have supervised release. I assume that's the case whether you're facing county or state charges as well, that there's some type of post-release supervision for more than 9 out of 10 people in there. Okay? So my question for you is, how about that conversation? What is a successful outcome of that conversation?
Well, I think that first I've got to put myself in the place of them, think about how they're thinking, how they're viewing me, and then try to overcome the majority of those problems beforehand. I know they're going to be thinking, okay, is this person going to be holding down a steady job? Is he, how's his family situation? What's going on with his relationships and who he has in his life? So, I mean, my idea and what I'm hoping to accomplish when I do, have that meeting with the probation officer is to just sort of let him know what I have going on. I've already got some work lined up for myself. I've done property management in the past, so I'm going to go right back into property management and work a consistent 9 to 5 because I anticipate that they're going to want me to have a 9-to-5 job. From what I understand, there's some limitations as far as going into business for myself again, right out of the gate. And they kind of look down upon that from what I understand. I also know that,
well, let's explore that for 1 second. What you just said, right? They look down upon that, right? Yeah. So that's a key component. When you're defining success and putting yourself into the mindset of somebody else, also think about who are the people that they're supervising? How many, right? Yeah. That probation officer may have 100 people on his caseload. Yeah. And every single one of those people are going to want the same thing as you. But there are going to be some people that the probation officer will allow to work independently. There are going to be some people that they will allow to interact with other people who have felony backgrounds. There will allow some people to travel. The question that we have to start asking is, what can I do today that puts me on a pathway to accelerate that conversation, right? So if you're thinking about it, don't only think about the obstacles, don't only think about their mindset, but think about, well, wait a minute, there's going to be 100 people coming, 100 of them are going to ask for a higher level of liberty. Mm-hmm. The rules may say, what was it you said that they don't smile upon?
Yeah, people working for themselves right out of the gate, and that's not something I've confirmed. It's just something that I've heard repeatedly.
You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. They don't, but there are some people that overcome it. The question is, what do those people that overcome it? What did they do differently than the people who didn't? Okay, and if you can start answering those questions, then that's going to really accelerate this concept of setting goals. Okay. And that's one lesson that I learned. Okay. So I want, us to think about that, and you guys can ask me anything. Because remember, I came out with many, many years of supervised release waiting for me. But the first day I came out, I was allowed to travel. I worked with other felons, and I worked independently. So I worked for myself. That's not normal. And so you have to be thinking about, what can I do to get that kind of outcome? And the sooner you start thinking about it, Cole, the better you are. You haven't even been sentenced yet, and you're already thinking about it. That's the time, right? So let's see. And I appreciate you having coming up and getting the ball started, and maybe we get somebody else. There are a couple of guys that spoke to me yesterday, so I would like them to come up and ask another question, and that is, let's talk about the employer that you're going to meet, the first guy that you're going to go to and ask for a job. I want you to think about that person and define success on that interview. Could somebody give some thought to that, about what does that look like? Right on, brother. Thanks for coming up. What's your name, dude?
Ryan.
Brian. So I'm Michael. I'm super glad that you came up. And I want to say, I know that it's kind of weird to probably come up and speak into a television camera or something like that, but I really believe that to the extent that we push ourselves to do these things, we open our mindset up to really getting these questions answered. So there's nothing you can't ask me, and I want to hear how you would approach this, having come out of jail, right? Showing that you're going to have the right mindset, right? What does that look like when you go to speak with that first employer?
Success going to speak with the first employer to me looks like, obviously getting the job, in the end, but, just going in there with a calm level attitude, and knowing what I'm talking about, had something else to say as well. In my opinion, hard work and determination always pays off, so whatever.
So wait a minute, you said hard work and determination. I want you to use one more concept in there, because we're going to be thinking about the employer. Okay. And these are the strategies that I used and that I learned from leaders. So talk about hard work. And here's another concept that a lot of us don't think about, but goodwill. Okay? Hard work and goodwill. Tell me, if I were gonna ask you, what does hard work and goodwill mean to you? I'm an employer. What does hard work and goodwill mean to you? I want to hear what that answer would be.
Hard work and goodwill to me means not finishing until the job is done and being respectful of all my other coworkers.
Good answer. Now let's talk, though. What we're going to do when we get into goals, I want to come back to that for you. I want to come back to hard work and goodwill and why I think these are the kinds of open-ended questions that are kind of hard to answer. But if you're going to overcome a felony background, your response to that can be incredibly powerful in getting you the outcome that you want as far as getting the job. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that, what that means when we get into goals. Because as an employer, one of the things that I have learned, the employers that are receptive to hiring guys like us, guys who have a background where we've been in custody, their response is, what are you thinking about your community? What are you thinking about building your community? They're interested in building their community. And so a lot of times in business and in career building, it's really important to not think about what I'm doing for myself, just getting a job, but how do I build a better community? And so you'll hear me talking about hard work and goodwill through this entire concept. You'll hear me talking about, this idea of saying, I've always got to be thinking of the person I'm going to meet. And those people, they think differently from the way that I thought when I was breaking the law. When I was breaking the law, the only thing I thought about was myself. And to the extent we can start thinking about the world being bigger than us, we differentiate ourselves from those other 100 people that are applying for the same job. And sadly, my friend, there are 40 million people out here that are going to be looking for a job. If I've got a felony background, I don't want to bury my head in the sand. I want to know it, and I want to prepare for it. And that's why values and goals, to me, are like the prerequisite to everything else. Make sense?
Yes, sir.
Ryan, right? Or
Yes,
Brian?
sir.
It's Ryan or Brian?
Ryan.
Right on. So thanks for coming up. I'd love to I know that we're getting late on time, so I want to get one more guy if we can that might give me this other concept about